The crushing pain in my chest started during the salad course. I was at my parents' house for their 30th anniversary dinner party. 30 guests, most of them colleagues from Mercy General Hospital, where both my parents worked as cardiologists. The dining room glittered with candles and crystal, and my mother had spent weeks planning the menu. The pain felt like someone had placed a steel band around my rib cage and was tightening it slowly. My left arm went numb. Cold sweat broke out across my forehead. "Excuse me," I whispered to my father, seated beside me. "Dad, something's wrong." My chest. He glanced at me, then back to his colleague across the table, who was telling a story about a difficult catheterization procedure. "You're fine, David. Probably just indigestion. Your mother's beef Wellington is rich." "No. It's not that. It hurts. Really hurts." I pressed my hand against my sternum, trying to breathe through the pressure. My mother noticed from her position at the head of the table. She excused herself and came over, leaning down with a tight smile. "David, what's wrong?" "Chest pain," I managed. "Left arm numb. Having trouble breathing." Her smile didn't waver, but her voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "You're having a panic attack. You've had them before. Don't make a scene at our anniversary dinner." "Mom, I'm 34. I know what a panic attack feels like. This is different." "Stop being dramatic," she said, straightening up. "You're embarrassing us in front of our colleagues." I looked around the table. Dr. Phillips, the head of cardiology. Dr. Martinez, chief of emergency medicine. Dr. Kim, who taught at the medical school. All of them watching me with varying degrees of concern and curiosity. "I think I need to go to the hospital," I said. Louder now. My father stood up. "David, come with me to the kitchen." I stumbled after him, my vision starting to blur at the edges. In the kitchen, away from the guests, he turned on me. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Your mother has been planning this dinner for months." "I'm not doing anything. I'm sick. Something's really wrong." The pain was getting worse, radiating down my arm, up into my jaw. "Please call 911. You're 34 years old," he said flatly. "Young healthy people don't have heart attacks. You're having anxiety because you just lost your job and you're stressed about money." "I'm not calling an ambulance for a panic attack. I'm a software engineer, not a doctor, but I know my body, and I am a doctor," he interrupted. "A cardiologist with 30 years of experience. I'm telling you this is anxiety." My mother appeared in the doorway. "David, take some deep breaths. You're hyperventilating." "I can't breathe right, because my chest feels like it's being crushed," I gasped. She opened a cabinet and pulled out a prescription bottle. "Here, take 2 of these. They're Xanax. They'll calm you down." "I don't need Xanax. I need." The room tilted. I grabbed the counter to steady myself. "You need to get yourself under control," my father said coldly. "We have a house full of guests, some of the most respected physicians in the state, and you're making us look like we can't even manage our own son's mental health." The pain in my chest was excruciating now. I could barely stand. "Please," I whispered. "Please call an ambulance." "No," my mother said firmly. "Go upstairs to your old bedroom. Lie down. Take the medication. You'll feel better in 20 minutes. And if you can't calm down, call an Uber and go home," my father added. "We're going back to our guests." They left me standing in the kitchen, clutching the counter, trying to breathe through the crushing pressure in my chest. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. My vision was going gray at the edges. I dialed 911. 911. "What's your emergency?" "I'm having a heart attack," I said. The words came out slurred. 34 years old, chest pain, left arm numb, sweating, can't breathe right. "I'm at 2847 Oakwood Drive." "Stay on the line, sir. I'm dispatching paramedics now." "Are you alone?" "My parents are here. They're doctors. They said it's anxiety." My legs gave out. I slid down to the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinet. "They won't call for help. The paramedics are 3 minutes away. Stay with me." "What's your name?" "David. David Morrison." "Okay, David. Try to stay calm. Help is coming." The phone slipped from my hand. The kitchen ceiling swam above me. I heard voices from the dining room. Laughter. The clink of glasses. Then nothing. I woke up in the ambulance. A paramedic was leaning over me, adjusting an IV line. Another was speaking rapidly into a radio. Patient is a 34-year-old male. Found unresponsive by family member. Currently conscious, GCS 14. EKG shows ST segment elevation. Classic presentation of acute MI. Administering aspirin, nitroglycerin, ETA to Mercy General. 4 minutes, you're having a heart attack. The first paramedic said to me gently. We've got you. You're going to be okay. Through the ambulance window, I could see my parents' house. My mother stood on the front porch, arms crossed, watching the ambulance. My father was talking to one of the guests, gesturing dismissively. Neither of them got in the ambulance with me. At Mercy General, they rushed me straight to the cardiac catheterization lab. Dr. Martinez, the same Dr. Martinez who had been at my parents' dinner table an hour ago, was the attending in the ER. His face was grim when he saw me. David, you're Robert and Susan's son. I nodded, unable to speak around the oxygen mask. Get him to the cath lab now, he ordered. This is a STEMI. Alert cardiology. The next hours were a blur. Catheterization, stent placement, ICU. When I finally woke up, groggy and disoriented, Dr. Martinez was sitting beside my bed. You had a widowmaker heart attack, he said quietly. Complete blockage of your left anterior descending artery. If the paramedics had arrived 10 minutes later, you'd be dead. I stared at him. Your paramedic report says you called 911 yourself. That your parents refused to call for emergency services. They thought it was anxiety, I whispered. His expression hardened. David, I was at that dinner party. I saw you tell your father something was wrong. I saw your mother take you to the kitchen. They came back to the table and said you had gone home early because you weren't feeling well. They left me on the kitchen floor. Dr. Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Your parents are both cardiologists. They know the symptoms of myocardial infarction better than anyone. A 34-year-old presenting with chest pain, left arm numbness, diaphoresis and shortness of breath. That's classic presentation. They should have called 911 immediately. But I'm young. You have a family history of early cardiac disease, he said. It's in your medical records. Your grandfather died of a heart attack. At 39. Your uncle had his first MI. At 42. Your parents know this. They know you're high risk. I closed my eyes. I'm required to file a report, Dr. Martinez said. When medical professionals fail to provide care to a family member, in a clear emergency situation, especially when that family member could have died, I have to report it to the state medical board. They're your colleagues, I said. Which makes this harder, he admitted. But David, you called 911 yourself, while having a massive heart attack, because your parents, both cardiologists, refused to get you emergency medical care. You lost consciousness on their kitchen floor, while they entertained guests 30 feet away. That's not a judgment call. That's gross negligence. The report was filed within 48 hours. Dr. Martinez included the paramedic documentation, the ER notes, the catheterization results, and his own eyewitness account of the dinner party. The state medical board moved faster than I expected. 6 days after my heart attack, while I was still in the hospital recovering, my mother appeared in my room. Her face was pale, her expression furious. What did you tell them? She demanded. Tell who? The medical board. They've suspended both our licenses pending investigation. They're calling it patient abandonment and medical negligence. Looked at her steadily. I didn't tell them anything. Dr. Martinez filed the report. He's required to by law. You could have told him it was a misunderstanding, my father said, appearing behind her. You could have said we didn't realize how serious it was. But you did realize, I said quietly. You're both cardiologists. You know the symptoms of MI. You knew about my family history. You just cared more about your anniversary party than whether I lived or died. That's not fair. My mother snapped. We thought you were having anxiety. No, you didn't, I interrupted. You knew, you just didn't want to deal with it in front of your colleagues. You didn't want the embarrassment of an ambulance at your party. My father's jaw clenched. We're trying to save our careers here, David. You need to help us. I almost died, I said. I called 911 myself, because my own parents, both heart specialists, refused to help me during a heart attack. I lost consciousness on your kitchen floor. The paramedics said another 10 minutes, and I would have been dead. You're being melodramatic again. My mother said, I have medical records that say otherwise. I replied, EKG showing ST segment elevation, catheterization showing complete LAD blockage, paramedic notes documenting that I was found unresponsive after family members refused to call for emergency services, Dr. Martinez report stating that you both returned to your dinner party, while I was dying in your kitchen. The silence stretched between us. The medical board wants to interview you. My father said finally, you'll tell them this was all a misunderstanding, that we made an honest mistake. No, I said. I won't lie for you, David. You chose a dinner party over my life. I said. You told me I was being dramatic while I was having a widowmaker heart attack. You went back to entertaining guests while I was unconscious on your floor. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices. My mother's eyes filled with tears. You're going to ruin us. You ruined yourselves. I said. I'm just the one who survived to document it. They left without another word. The medical board investigation took 3 months. I gave my statement via video conference from home. Still recovering from the cardiac event. The paramedics testified. Dr. Martinez testified. The other guests from the dinner party were interviewed. Several admitted they had noticed. I looked ill, but assumed my parents were handling it since they were physicians. The board's findings were released in November. Both my parents received formal reprimands and had their medical licenses suspended for 6 months. They were required to complete remedial courses in medical ethics and emergency response. They were permanently barred from treating family members in any capacity. The local medical community was shocked. The hospital where they worked conducted its own internal review. Several of their colleagues stopped speaking to them. My father called me once after the decision was announced. I hope you're satisfied, he said. 30 years of building our reputation destroyed. I hope you're satisfied too, I said. You got to finish your anniversary dinner without interruption. That was what mattered most to you. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened, I said. And now everyone knows it. I hung up. 6 months later, I got a letter from the medical board. My parents' licenses had been reinstated with conditions. They were both working again, though at a different hospital. I heard through mutual acquaintances that they'd sold their house, the one where I'd collapsed in the kitchen, and moved to a smaller place across town. We haven't spoken since that phone call. I go to cardiac rehab twice a week. I take my medications. I see my cardiologist, not my parents, every 3 months. My ejection fraction has improved. The stent is holding. I'm alive. Sometimes I think about that dinner party. The candles, the crystal, the distinguished guests, my mother's perfect menu, my father's carefully crafted toast, and me dying on the kitchen floor while they smiled and poured wine 30 feet away. I survived not because of my parents' medical expertise, but in spite of their complete failure to use it. That's what the medical board found. That's what the records show. That's what I'll carry with me for the rest of my life, however long that turns out to be. The truth documented and undeniable.